So with the Freescale Technology Forum here, and you're from EETimes, right?
Right, yeah. My name's Colin Johnson, or if you see my byline, it's R. Colin Johnson. I'm the technology editor at the EETimes, and been here at the conference for a few days. Had some very interesting presentations, and a very good show.
So did you think that? Did you see that Freescale launched some new interesting things, or some of the partners? You said something about the MEMS. What did you mean about the MEMS marketing?
Motorola, the precursor to Freescale, was a pioneer in the MEMS, micro electromechanical system space for years. And now they've continued that tradition. They've got the 3-axis accelerometers, pressure sensors, all the kind of things that you're probably familiar with. Accelerometers in the iPhone made them famous by doing the portrait to landscape switching automatically, and now the whole industry has picked up on that, and Freescale is one of the few manufacturers, a couple other big makers that also make these devices. But that whole MEMS thing is really exploding, and Freescale is continuing the pioneering work of Motorola.
They're like integrating more chips inside. So I saw some presentation where the phone can basically be on a table. As soon as you pick it up, it turns on and stuff. Like
right. That's true. Their big presentation here was, or their big announcement here was their smart MEMS capability. Like right now, if you put a accelerometer or a gyroscope or pressure sensor or any of these devices into a end user product, you have to spend a lot of time communicating between the processor, your application processor, and the MEMS device, taking the raw data and interpreting it. So it kind of bogs down things. That's one of the reasons that when you use your iPhone and switch it from landscape to portrait, it's kind of sluggish. There's a lot of processing going on. There's other reasons for that too, but they've now got they've started a new effort called extrinsic, which includes a cold fire processor on in the same package with the MEMS chips. There's actually 2 chips in the package. The user doesn't know this, but it's because it just looks like one device. And so all this kind of communications and processing of the MEMS signal can be done inside the smart package, and then it just sends out a signal to the application processor to say, hey, switch from landscape to portrait, rather than just sending the raw data over and bogging down the other thing that makes that switch kind of sluggish is gyroscope. You need the new iPhone 4, which was became available about 10 minutes ago. It has a gyroscope and an accelerometer in it, and that's going to make the portrait to landscape just instantaneous. And that's also what makes the Wii Motion Plus controller work so well. The gyroscope module snaps on the bottom of the Wii controller, and makes it like all the motion becomes real time. There's no lag or much less sluggish. And we don't know if Freescale is making those devices because Apple won't tell anybody. But as we speak, people are prying the lids off these new iPhone 4s, and
maybe there's a Freescale logo on
there might
gyro.
be, yeah. They probably sanded off the logos.
But the Wii
you have to actually cut open the chips and look inside at the circuitry to see what it is, and you can't. There's not written in there what it is. You have to compare it to one that you've taken apart. But there are like a whole bunch of labs.
But the Wii is using a gyro for like $1 or something like that. Is it really cheap?
Yeah, there are 2 manufacturers of gyros right now that are cheap enough to be used in those kind of devices. They're high-end ones. They're made by other companies, but now the prices of both accelerometers and gyros are down in the $2 range for the big volumes, for consumer devices like iPhone and Wii. And by this time next year, every smartphone will have a gyroscope. And
Oh.
it's not.
And
it's not-
accelerometers. You
and,
need
well,
both.
they already. I mean, when the iPhone came out, it was the first thing to have first device to have an accelerometer. Well, now every cell phone, every smartphone has got an accelerometer, and the same thing's going to happen with gyros. Gyros, iPhone 4 is the first one with the gyro, but by this time next year, everybody's going to follow suit. So.
Nice. It's pretty amazing. The Hugh Kerr keynote was pretty cool as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those sensors can really do lots, and maybe even auto-drive cars and stuff soon.
All right. Yeah. The next big next big thing in MEMS sensors is called sensor fusion, and that's kind of similar. That's a part of this the extrinsic brand will be able to address that, because when you have multiple sensors, you need to fuse the output from them. That's why the Wii controller works so well. It uses the accelerometer and the gyro to compensate for the lacks in each one, and together they work really well. But one of the next sensor fusion projects for these kind of devices will be navigational, what's called dead reckoning navigational devices. Like right now, if you have a GPS device, as soon as you go in a tunnel or inside, you lose your signal, and your bouncing ball or flashing beeping light goes off. You can't tell where you are on the map anymore. But the new devices, we use sensor fusion, accelerometers, gyroscopes, pressure sensors, and magnetometers together to do what's called dead reckoning. So when you come inside, it will be the accelerometer will be able to tell the system how fast you're moving, and what the gyroscope will assist the accelerometer in determining exactly your orientation. Actually, accelerometer do on chairs and tilt and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But for navigation, it's you want to know where you are. But one thing that's lacking in navigation maps today is they're all flat. Yeah. You know, but when you go indoors, you have to go up and down stairs. You know, like right now, we're in the same location as the guys in the floor above us. Yeah. But how do you tell the difference? Well, you use a pressure sensor, because the pressure here is slightly more than the pressure up there, yeah, because there's less air, pressing down from above. Nice. So
that's indoor GPS kind of.
Indoor GPS, right? And the magnetometer gives you heading.
Nice.
So you need heading, elevation, plus the motion type stuff you get from accelerometer and the gyro. And the problem is you got to fuse all four of those signals together into the flashing light on the map.
That's awesome. And so when you take pictures, perhaps there will be some metadata that tells you exactly where you're pointing the camera, up, down, where you are.
Right. Yeah.
And you'll add it to Google Maps in 3D.
Yeah. Well, that's true. There's a couple of interesting applications of that. One is just navigation, like where in the mall, is the Starbucks. Yeah. And you can't tell now because you lose your GPS signal. But with this sensor fusion and those four sensors together, they'll be able to do that kind of navigation. Nice. But the other thing is something called augmented reality, and the idea there is that you take your cell phone, and it's got this capability, and aim it around at different places, and when you aim it at Starbucks, it'll tell you, how much the latte is. You aim it, at the Gap, and it'll say, jeans are on sale today. Or aim it down the street at a building you can't quite make out, and it'll say, there's a restaurant in there. So it's kind of, and all these things will be kind of written over the image, kind of like in Terminator. Remember in Terminator we had all that tactical data. No? Pardon me?
It'll be in our glasses, kind of overlaid.
I guess you could do that, but what they're doing now is because all the silicon is in your cell phone already. Yeah. It's another called location-based services and augmented reality. That's the future of awesome. Sensor fusion.
What do you think about the Cortex M4? Did they announce something, right?
Right. Yeah. The ARM processor family is kind of a RISC processor, reduced instruction set computing, that RISC stands for. And the idea there is that processors were getting more and more complicated. And RISC came along and said, hey, you know, you're making things too hard. That if you reduce the instruction set to the bare essence, you can make the chip a lot smaller, faster, lower power. And because of that, ARM devices are now being widely adopted as a standard architecture rather than you know, having different architectures for different applications. People are standardizing on that. So now Freescale has recognized that trend, and they have a new family of processors called Kinesis that uses the ARM, and the latest core is the Cortex I think it's the M4. Anyway, the latest Cortex core has been announced, and ARM doesn't actually make chips. They just make the intellectual property and they license it out. So everybody is working on NPX, all these NXP, all these companies are working on coming out with processors, but Freescale says they're the first one to implement the latest core in their Kinesis family. So
cool.
That was their announcement.
So overall, you thought it was a cool conference?
Great conference overall, yeah. Good food,
Yeah, the
good
food was
parties,
awesome.
yeah. And it was a good experience overall.
Nice.
Good chance to see, you know, what Freescale is up to. And I think one of the things that will be useful for people learning about the Freescale's developments here is that next year they're going to have or pretty soon.
Yeah.
As soon as the economy gets in the right condition again, they're going to have an initial public offering. Right now, Freescale is a private company. They've spun out. It's kind of the opposite of the normal way of doing things. Motorola made their own chips, so they spun out the chip-making part into Freescale as a private company, and that's several years ago. But now, if it hadn't been for the recession, they probably would have already had an initial public offering, an IPO.
Okay.
But probably, I predict by this time next year, you'll be able to buy Freescale stock on the stock market again.
Cool. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Sure. See you, Nicholas.